Cool. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I think this is our 7th session or something like that. Plenty to get through this time. So happy Thanksgiving for last week as well, given that we postponed for a week. We've got 3 guest speakers this time, if I can call them guest speakers. I'm sure they'd like to be thought of as guest speakers. Chris is going to talk about the App Engine versus Go packages conversation that was happening in golang-tools. Jonathan's going to be giving us a quick overview of API diff, a tool he's been working on, and Aaron's going to give us a quick update on Athens as well. I'm very happy as to who talks first. Chris, Jonathan, Aaron, who would like to kick off?
Either way.
Go ahead, Chris. Top of our screen. So.
Okay. Can you see my screen? I don't know if it's pinned. I think, is it pinned now? Can everyone see the mailing list post?
I can see a video of you. We could see the mailing list post a second ago.
Oh,
Paul, do you have somebody like selected? Because if you unselect the person on the right.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Thank you very much, Billy. That's just my incompetence.
Okay, great. So quick intro. I'm Chris. I've worked on some Go and cloud stuff at Google, and I was talking to Fatih about his Fix Me app, which I think hopefully people in the room are familiar with. Basically provides some automatic suggestions on pull requests and source code on GitHub. And he was talking to me about running it on App Engine. And it was good timing because we had just announced a new version of the App Engine runtime. So you may have seen the post on the Go blog or on the Google Cloud blog. And this environment's quite different than the App Engine runtimes that that came from 2010 or so. Namely, that it's backed by a gvisor sandbox that basically allows any kind of or a pretty comprehensive set of Linux syscalls. So now the sandbox sort of, sorry, I just come back from vacation, so I've sort of forgotten words. The sort of sandbox surface is the Linux API rather than a modified version of the Go toolchain. So it's pretty powerful because you can shell out, you can exec any kind of Linux binary. You can use the Linux API directly, so sockets, so the net package and net HTTP packages just work without modification. Whereas previously you needed to use the App Engine specific URL fetch and various other. There was also a socket API which gave you a net dialer that went through internal App Engine RPCs. So it all looked a bit weird. If any of you had used App Engine, you'd know those sandbox restrictions. So those are basically all gone now. And so the question that Fatih brought up was using the Xgo packages package. And it turns out that package execs out to CMD Go to call Go list. But the thing is, the App Engine runtime environment doesn't provide anything other than Ubuntu, so it doesn't have a Go toolchain in there. We basically build your Go binary and then package it into a Docker container, a Docker image under the hood, and then that gets deployed out. And that doesn't include the Go toolchain, which was an intentional decision. And I still think it's the right thing to do because it's the correct thing for a typical application, right? It's sort of akin to deploying your Go binary to Ubuntu VM or a lightweight Docker container. So yeah, obviously that makes it more difficult to develop apps like Fix Me. There are a few ways around it. So you can basically package up any kind of files or binaries as part of your deployment. So part of your deployment could be maybe extracting the Go command and just uploading that as part of your app. The nice thing is that the stager hashes file content, so that would mean it's only uploaded once, even for all future deployments, because all of your files are staged in Google Cloud Storage and hashed. So that's a pretty reasonable way to do that. The other possibilities are using the App Engine flexible environment, which lets you deploy arbitrary Docker containers. And we're also working on this product called, actually it doesn't have a public name yet, but we're calling it Serverless Containers Alpha. And this is basically deploying arbitrary Docker images to an App Engine-like environment. So the same like fast deploys, fast boot ups, but allowing you to run arbitrary Linux binaries, basically. So for this, you would handle your build process yourself, and then point the particular Docker image URL to the serverless containers runtime environment. So kind of like App Engine without the build step, which lets you put in any, whatever you want. So you could put any number of Go tool chains in your image there. So that's a quick rundown of that environment. There are some details in the Go blog post. So it sort of explains a bit of the runtime contract and points you at the documentation that explains more about the runtime environment. But really the short of it is, you can write your Go applications as vanilla Go code, not really thinking about any kind of special App Engine stuff. But your code runs in a pretty vanilla Ubuntu image. So you really don't have many dependencies. I think it may get bundled with things like ImageMagick and things like that, but not the Go toolchain. So yeah, that's a
quick question there.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Thank you. Just to check one thing on the bottom line is you are actually expecting people to be able to use Go packages with its execing to the Go tool in any of the App Engine environments, with the caveat that actually in the standard environment, people will need to bundle that as part of the deploy because the Go tool is not part of the deploy.
Exactly. And I guess the other unfortunate part is we don't really have any build hooks. We only do a Go build. We don't sort of let you plug into doing an apt-get or anything, any sort of like pre-build steps. That's something you would have to do before you deploy. Though I do think that this serverless containers alpha is pretty promising for these more, I guess, sort of heavy-handed experiences where you just want more control over what's actually going to be packaged into the operating system for the deployment. Yeah. So there's a quick question. Fatih said, oh yeah, the standard Docker image has tools such as JQ, Git, ImageMagick, FFmpeg. Yeah, so there are a bunch of system packages, but yeah, not the Go toolchain. Maybe that's something we should think about because it doesn't actually have any performance impact or anything like, I don't think it affects even the startup time for these apps. So maybe that's something we should look at. But yeah, we wanted to keep it as clean as possible.
Cool, Fatih, I think you're on the call, aren't you? Any questions you wanted to follow up with, given that you and Chris have been talking about this?
Yeah, Joe, I'm already talking with Chris about this, so I don't have any questions or anything to discuss here. So I'm just here to listen what Chris has to say. So
anybody else got any questions? Chris, I think it was incredibly useful. Thanks for coming on just to sort of effectively surface the conversation that you and Fatih have had for the benefit of everybody else. Anybody else who might just be reading the notes afterwards, just getting it down that actually, no, this is effectively the bottom line when it comes to App Engine, should be able to use Go packages. So if anybody else has any questions, please go for it. I'll take that silence as confirmation. I'll go for it.
Is it possible to get access to serverless containers? Because I've signed up about a week and a half ago or so.
I think there's a long list. I'm not sure where we're at with letting people into it yet. Actually, Adam, who's here with me, is working on it more directly.
Hello. That's being processed manually by the PM. There was probably a slowdown due to the holiday
Okay.
last week. But that should be through in the next few days, I would expect.
Cool. Thanks.
So soon.
Great, Chris. Thanks so much. I guess if anybody has any other questions, we can. Would you be happy if they followed up on perhaps in that thread that's already in Golang-tools afterwards?
Yeah, just in that thread, and just ping or CC me. So because I don't think I'm on this list. So, but yeah, happy to, and yeah, feel free to just ping me or have a chat with me if you have any questions about this.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Jonathan, did you want to sort of give us an introduction to API diff?
Somewhere there's a window that says has a slide that says API compatibility in Go, and that's what you should be looking at.
Might need to present. I may just be guessing it myself.
So it should be. Do you see it, Rebecca?
Yeah.
I just pinned it, so everyone should see it now, I think.
So what happened was, I'm actually not on the Go Tools team. I was on another team, but we have a repo with many, where we generate many clients, and we wanted them each to be separate modules, and we thought we couldn't even start on that until we could ask the question in an automated way, what has changed in this module?
Seems like people still can't see it. Is that the case?
Yep. Sorry to interrupt you, Jonathan.
No problem.
So it should be pinned.
Yeah, you'll have to present. You can't just pin. Like if you pin, it's just pinning it for you.
Oh.
Was there a separate present? I am presenting from my.
Yeah, I think Chris just trumped you though, Jonathan, when he joined the call.
I just have to represent, maybe.
Sorry, that was a very bad choice of word.
Let's try this. I'll just try it over.
Yeah, you may like each person might be able to pin Jonathan's name on their own screens.
Oh no, here you go. Now it looks like it's working for me.
Okay, and now I just got to find it. Where the hell did it go?
Is there anyone who can't see the presentation?
I think it's looking like a few messages coming in saying that people can see it now. Thanks, Jonathan.
Sure. So so we wanted a way to ask for a package, what has changed between the old version and the new version of the package? Now, ultimately, we want to be able to ask that for modules as a whole, but so far, I've just done the package part. So I thought about it a lot, and I wrote a little tool to do it. And the tool, Paul very kindly put together a little demo of the tool. The tool is not very interesting to run. You give it two arguments. You could be two different import paths, or in order to be able to run it on the same import path at different places, you can run it in a mode where it sort of saves. You give it an import path, and it loads that package. It uses Go packages, and it saves it using this export data format, the same format that the compiler uses. Just saves it to a file, and then you can. So you say you go to v1.0 of your package, and you run the tool, and you save a snapshot of that, and then you go to head, and you run the tool, giving it the file you generated, and then the current import path. So that's the only thing it can do. It can just save packages into these files, or it can compare, basically diff two packages. So rather than go through how to use it, so as I said, Paul has a nice README for that. I wanted to talk about the theory, which is actually gets sort of interesting and complicated and hairy. So the README that was linked in your homework goes into that in a lot of detail, but I wanted to start with an overview. So we want to, the idea is to help you decide how to change the semantic version of your module. Should you be making a minor bump because you made a change, a major bump, or just a patch bump? Or maybe nothing at all. So, but I want to focus on the difference between major and minor. So did you make a breaking change? Is the module compatible with the old one? My tool also says, talks about compatible changes. For example, if you add a method or a function, it'll print that out. But the interesting case is, does this change, is this a compatible or incompatible change? So instead of thinking about what does compatible mean, we should think about what we want it to mean. Since we can't really talk about behavior, we can only talk about whether something we can compute. We're just going to talk about compile time compatibility. So already right out of the box, this tool can't do anything more than advise you. There's no way you would ever want it to just automatically, bump a version and commit. Yeah, Paul is giving you a link to his example. So it's just an advisory thing, because all it can tell you is will the old code, if the old code compile, will the new code compile? That's the basic question. It answers. But even there, you don't want to do it strictly, because there's many cases, a lot of things you can write and go, where if we sort of acknowledge them as breaking changes, you wouldn't be able to make any changes. Some of these you're familiar with from the golang compatibility promise, like unkeyed struct literals, a struct literal where you don't write the field names. That's almost certainly going to break. Any change to the struct, adding a field to the struct would break, and we want to be able to add fields to structs. So we're going to require that we're going to ignore breaking changes due to unkeyed struct literals. We're going to allow breaking changes that break unkeyed struct literals. There are also cases where, due to interactions with embedding and this rule where if you embed two fields with the same name at the same level, they sort of cancel each other out and they don't exist. So if you had a field and you added another field with this, it could sort of, if you wrote the right code, you could break. That's unlikely, and also, again, it would imply that you could never make any changes, so we're going to ignore it. There's also other weird cases. You can actually write a struct type externally, even though it's named in the package, and you can screw things up that way, and you can use various unsafe things like asking for the size of a struct. If you ask for the size of a struct, if you use that, say, in an array declaration where it's the size of the array, then you've basically baked the size of some struct into the type of your program, and any change to the size of the struct would be a breaking change. So obviously that's absurd. We're not going to disallow every possible change. So there's a couple more I mentioned in the README. But so the bottom line is that the definition of compatibility we're using is approximate compile time compatibility. So this just emphasizes the fact that if this tool says things are compatible, it doesn't mean stuff won't break. It can break because you change behavior. It could break because code uses some of these other things. But it's a good rule of thumb. And at least it will print out what has changed. And so you can then make an informed decision about whether you want to do a major or minor version bump. So we want to allow useful changes. Point out incompatibilities. We also want to avoid noise. We don't want to print out a lot of information about minor changes. And the fourth point, which you only appreciate after you've dug into this a bit, is that we want to make this tool understandable. There's an enormous number of subtleties when you get down into the dirt. I won't go into them here, but I have made some simplifications. For example, there's compatible changes you can make that my tool won't report or will report as incompatible changes, just because they're too weird, and they're also extremely unlikely. So the basic idea of the tool is pretty straightforward. We're going to load in these two packages. We're going to loop over the exported symbols of the old package. Okay, that's naively, that's the API of the package, the exported symbols. That's wrong, but it's approximately right. We're going to loop over each exported symbol. We're going to find it in the new package, and we're going to see if it's the same thing, referring to the same thing, or if the new thing is compatible with the old. And if there's any new symbols in the new package, those are compatible additions. So the first way that's wrong is that you can unexported symbols can be relevant. So here's this unexported symbol U1 that, because of the third line, the variable declaration V, is sort of visible to clients of this package. They can't write the name U1, it's unexported, but they can call its exported function M by writing v.m. So you also have to consider unexported symbols. So I just used the term in the document exposed to mean any symbol that's either exported or is visible in this way. It's an unexported symbol that's somehow part of the API because it's the type of an exported symbol. It appears in a function signature, something like that. You have to consider those two. And another thing you encounter is when you ask, are these two types the same? That's actually a tricky question. You can't just use the type identity. The type identity as it's defined in the spec is actually completely wrong. It says for name types, for defined types, it says these two types are the same if they come from the same declaration. Well, obviously we're talking about two different packages, so they don't come from the same declaration. So you want some other form of correspondence. So the first example here shows that it can't simply be matching names because here the old type capital T and the new type lowercase u are actually corresponding types because of the alias. And it can't even, because you can have these unexported types that are sort of pseudo visible, and you should be free to rename an unexported type. It's not just a matter of tracking down aliases either. You have to be able to allow renamings of unexported types. So those actually two ideas are the sort of the hardest things to get your mind around. And once you have those, definitions are straightforward. And I don't actually have it in the definitions here, but I can give you an example of one just to show you the flavor of it. So you talk about structs being compatible. I guess I should have had a slide for this because it gets complicated. You know what? I'm actually going to stop talking now. I think I've talked enough, and I'll let you take questions. But the rules for compatibility are defined in terms of this idea of typed correspondence to make sure that they make sense across these two different packages. I guess that's the main idea, and the README has all the details. All right, thanks.
Jonathan, that was awesome. Thank you. Just to pick up on one point that you didn't cover there, is I think the idea for this, the sort of the end goal is actually for this to end up in something like Go release. Did you just want to briefly talk about that?
Yes, thank you. So this tool is probably it's actually not even submitted yet. Eventually it will be, but it will be in tools/exp, so you should not depend on it, and it will probably end up getting rolled into Go release. I don't think, maybe the people in this room will think otherwise, but I'm not sure it needs to have a separate existence. But that's TBD.
Anybody else, please just fire away with questions.
Is there a plan to somehow join this with the Go project's API command that checks that every Go release doesn't break any previous Go 1 APIs?
This tool is far more sophisticated than that, so I would hope that would happen.
Right.
But I don't know if it will. Also, it's far more sophisticated, but it's only going to catch 0.1% of things that it covers all these weird cases. So maybe it's not even necessary. I don't know.
I could see it being helpful outside the context of Go release, just purely because an editor could highlight a breaking change that you've made in your API while you're editing. So that might actually change your behavior and make you think about how I make a change that's backwards compatible.
Yeah, so I've thought about that, and my opinion on that basically came down to, I think it's valuable to have this as a library, and then for Go release to use that library, and then we'll probably put something into the LSP that lets you use it inside editors. But it would also be available as a library for anyone else who wants to write other powerful tools.
Any other takers? Otherwise, Jonathan, thank you. If you're happy with people following up via the golang-tools group, you can just sort of fire any questions in there.
Sure.
That people may have. Otherwise, I guess we can also, people can follow along with the CL as it makes progress as well. As a good way of knowing where that lands.
Yep, that'd be great.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Sure. Aaron, did you want to give us an update on Athens? Welcome to the call, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Can everybody hear me okay? Cool. Can I present on this thing? Is that okay to do?
Yeah.
Can folks see? Can anybody not see this Athens page?
All good.
So I noticed Marwan is here too. He's also a core maintainer on the Athens project. So yeah, this is my first meeting, but I just wanted to explain sort of what we're doing here. So this is a server that implements the Go modules download API. And we started working on this just before Go modules came out publicly. So it was the first server to implement the API. It certainly won't be the last. But the idea is that you can point the Go 1.11 CLI to this server wherever it's running. It's just an HTTPS server. And instead of Go downloading modules, packages, dependencies, all the terms are kind of similar. Instead of downloading from there, it'll actually go to this server and call a couple HTTP requests to download from the server. So the way this works behind the scenes is it actually uses the Go tool itself to go and grab source code from GitHub or whatever other upstream, including vanity upstreams like gopackage.in or Kubernetes K8s.io and so forth. Grabs that code and then stores the module metadata and source code inside of immutable storage. So in a cloud environment, for example, this thing might run against, let's say, Google Cloud Storage. So it would run in the cloud. It would store all of the dependencies that are requested of it in a GCS bucket. And from that point on, the source code wouldn't change, and anyone can point their Go tool to Athens and download the code essentially from a CDN instead of from a version control system. So this thing is in a beta release. If you go on GitHub, github.com/go-mods, mods/Athens, you can check out releases. You can also kind of check out state of the project and so forth. We're growing sort of quickly right now. This thing is about 7 months old or so. Community is growing. And obviously, if anyone wants to get involved, there's an Athens channel on the Gophers Slack. But the goal essentially for the next 6 months is a second beta that's just going to mostly have some UI and just general stability improvements, bug fixes, etc. But also the other point is we're going to host a sort of a preview version of Athens publicly. And the idea there is so folks can really easily start using it, which is to just set an environment variable in their for their CLI to use in their shell. That will point their Go tool to the public preview of Athens, and they can get used to what it's like to build and download dependencies and so on from a proxy server instead of directly from a VCS. So if folks want to find out more, docs.gomods.io is the place. The part that I would point out specifically is the intro. You can kind of read through this fairly quickly. Really, Athens 101 is the place. If we go here, you can kind of see this is like 3 paragraphs on what it does, and then you just move on. And this is sort of the deep details and so on. But then the second place I'd go is installing Athens. This explains sort of what the deal is behind the scenes with Athens, how we release, and then under shared instance, we have a Docker image for it, so it's fairly easy to get this thing up and running locally. And then at that point, you can point your CLI to your local instance and play around with it. So that's pretty much everything for me. I'm going to shut up and let folks ask questions because we can kind of take this thing in a bunch of different directions. So let me stop presenting and start listening.
Anyone, please just kick off with any questions. Aaron, you've clearly done an amazing job.
Thank you. Yeah.
I guess the sort of same applies if anybody does have any follow-up questions afterwards. If you're comfortable with them messaging via the golang-tools group, we can then get any updates from there.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm subscribed. I'll make sure I'm subscribed to that the group.
If not, I could, yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
I had one question. Oh, yeah, there's quite a lot of echo. I had one little question. There was an issue I encountered this morning with, essentially you can't do go get of packages when you're doing using Go proxy in Athens. Do you know what the sort of likely timeline of that is to be solved, or?
I don't think I've seen that issue. What exactly is going on?
It doesn't understand branch names when you do go get, essentially.
Oh, branch names. Yeah.
So if you do, but if you do go get, it uses latest, and that also doesn't seem to work. So,
I can comment on that. But
yeah, please do.
So this was an issue. I can hear a lot of echo, by the way. Sorry, if anyone can mute their microphone, it might help. There we go. That's better.
I think it was Aaron, actually.
So if the issue with that is, like Aaron said, we use the Go toolchain itself to actually download the modules. And I pushed a fix to the Go toolchain because we don't do go get internally. We do something called go mod download. And this is fixed in the upstream. But obviously that should be released in 1.12. I believe that fix is included. So once 1.12 is released, we can actually use, you could do go get branch name with the Go proxy pointing to Athens. But there is a much bigger question here. I feel like I'm pretty sure Athens will need to update its code as well, because the whole idea of Athens is that you want to fix your modules and you want to freeze them and make them immutable. So when you do something like go get, package errors at master, you don't want to fix master. Master is always changing, and so master should internally change to an actual current version, which is always a pseudo version and not a semantic, release. And so we want to make sure that we store that under an actual hash as opposed to an actual branch. Because if you do a go get, let's say master, and then 2 days later you want to do a go get master again, you're going to get the old version. You're not going to get the current master. So the short answer is that we're going to wait for 1.12 to be released, because that should have the fix, because right now go mod download just doesn't work with branches or big hashes. And then the second part, Athens, once that's done, Athens should also have a strategy to do that as well.
Cool. Yeah, that would be great. Particularly, it would be even better if like it could guarantee to get things, to recheck at most once every, say 12 hours or 2 hours configurable, because that means I could, change projects and do go get at latest, and even if I'm an airplane, for example.
Yeah. One last thing I want to say is that right now the beta version is mostly, I want to say, like well suited for a CI/CD system, which I am currently using for my team, which is basically once you have your go mod file, meaning you didn't really use the proxy the first time, but you just want to have the proxy as part of your CI/CD system, so that when you're building a binary for production or for staging, you don't need a vendor folder, let's say, or you just want to use Athens for whatever reason you want. You're never gonna, since you have a go mod file, you're never gonna do a go get at branch or at latest, because you're always gonna target a specific version. So I guess one big asterisk for the beta is that it's perfect for a CI/CD system, and then once 1.12 comes out, it's going to be more suitable for the use case you just mentioned.
Oh, that's really useful, because I just run it globally on my machine and had set go proxy equals localhost colon 3000,
right.
And yeah, you get loads of 500 errors, which, by the way, are kind of opaque. So
Yeah, that's another piece of the Go toolchain that we're going to start working on. We basically have to just do regexes on the output of the Go tool behind the scenes. So we have to get better at that or fix the tool chain to give us some more information on what failed. I'll add to Marwan, I'll add to what you said. I use it locally as the proxy kind of before you have the go mod file. So I'm kind of the same boat as you, Roger. It's messy. Obviously, we know what's going on with it. I also have an instance sort of in the cloud that I just use to see what's wrong. And I see the latest endpoint and actually the list endpoint as well. They're just super slow right now. So we will have to eventually allow the option for some caching there. Sort of, Roger, as you put it, sort of, update every n seconds or hours or whatever it may be. So that's coming too.
That'd be awesome. Looks really good, by the way.
Thanks.
Great. Aaron, Marwan, thanks very so much indeed. And as I said, people can follow up with you afterwards if that's okay with you.
Yep.
Thank you. Let's move on then to the next thing, which is a sort of a quick run through the usual points that we update on. I think we've got Ramya, Zach, and Joe on. I see that Billy had to drop off. If we could just get a quick update on how things are going, Ramya, with VS Code.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, nothing. The recent releases after the last time we talked, none of them had any module-specific changes. But issues-wise, what I'm seeing is quite a few number of issues having problems with completions. I'm including Rebecca on those threads, and she's engaging with the users, so maybe she can speak to it. Go to definition recently has been failing for more people. I believe there has been some changes upstream, and when you go get it, it's no longer working because I think there's an error of you need to force the git pull. So we need to look into that. Has there been any forced update to the branch that go get doesn't work anymore on GoDev? Ian, I'm talking about your fork.
Yes, the master branch of my repository was force pushed.
No. Well.
Paul made me do it. He told me.
I knew you were going to say that.
Say what?
It's basically what Ian's saying, Ramya, is that it's my fault.
But what I'm currently trying to do is build a set of patches that will allow us to switch back to Roger's version with the new code as an optional branch. So hopefully we'll stop using my repository at all in the next week.
Okay, then what do you suggest for users now? Because I think some of the fixes, we are trying to tell them, hey, get the latest if the go dev, but then when they do, it fails. And I can ask them to like go and delete the folder and then try again and things like that. But is this like a temporary thing? You're saying you're going to merge the changes to the main go dev?
Yeah, I'm hoping that the main go dev will have an optional modules mode with my new branches in it, and then nobody will use my fork at all.
Okay, Roger.
Yeah. In the meantime, yes, you're right that they would have to do a forced fetch.
Okay.
Sorry, Ramya, that definitely wasn't the intention of because the error that essentially Ian and I were trying to fix before is that there'd been a change in Go packages, and effectively the go.mod file for Ian's fork of GoDev wasn't up to date with that. And so if anyone was building from it just sort of cloning the repository and building using the go.mod, that was failing. So yeah, it was an unintentional side effect that actually the force push to master then broke people who would just use a go get -u, which, yeah, apologies, I suppose we didn't intend for it to be a force push because that wasn't the requirement, but that was just how it happened. So apologies that it's broken a number of your users.
Okay, I can communicate that. But even after the latest sync, I think now the error I'm getting is there must be at least one package that contains the file. Ian, you replied on that message, but I'm not really sure what you're asking the users to do.
So tip should be working. Certainly it's passing tests. The error you're seeing is one you get if you've got an incompatible version of Go packages and GoDef, which shouldn't happen, particularly not if you're building in module mode. Basically, it's because of the switch from the contains colon to the file equals, so it doesn't understand the pattern if you have wrong things together. But if you have the tip of both, it should be fine.
When you say tip of both, do you mean GoDef and Go?
No, I mean GoDef and xtools.
Rami, are you actually building this in Go path mode or modules mode? Because I think that would, if you're, as Ian said, if you're building it in modules mode, then this won't be an issue at all.
I don't think so. I'm not building GoDef in module mode, so I should be building in module mode.
You will be able to, yeah, if you're using Ian's fork, yeah.
No, but should I is the question, right?
It shouldn't matter, but it may be also because of forced push. You may find that Go gets updated xtools, but not GoDef because of the forced push, and you're now stuck on an old version of GoDef against a new version of Go packages.
Yeah, so I cleared out my GoDef, so I definitely have a new version of GoDef. So, okay.
Then check that you have the latest xtools, because it might be that you have an old xtools that doesn't understand the file equals query.
Okay. Silly question. When you say old xtools, so if I have to update that, that's like a what? A go get on something?
Yeah. Yeah, just go get xtools.
Cool. I'll give that a try.
I want to add something, just one quirk about, I don't know if people have noticed, the GoDef package has the vendor folder, but doesn't have the xtools inside of it, and that's why it relies on the xtools inside of GoPath, which is why Ian just mentioned if you do a go get -u for Golang org xtools, then things might be fixed. But I ran through the same issue where I actually built with Go modules enabled, and it was using the xtools not in GoPath, but whatever was specified in the go.mod file for that. So it is a bit of a quirk to catch.
That sounds like something we can tidy up when this gets merged back into Roger's repo. For those people who are building in GoPath mode, we can ensure the vendor is complete. And for those people who are building in module mode, then they don't need to do anything.
Yep.
Or we could just delete the vendor folder and tell everybody to use Athens.
Nice. Was that where you're heading with that, Marwan? I like that.
Totally.
Great. Ramya, anything else that you wanted to flag up? Apologies again for the GoDef issue.
That's okay. Yeah, I think just because of that or maybe related issues, there have been like people on Twitter or GitHub issues telling that the navigation is not working. But I'll reach out and see once I confirm that updating Golang xtools also works. I'll reach out and fix that. Other than that, I think nothing from my side. Rebecca can speak about Go code, and then we can talk about the language server.
Cool.
Yeah, so for Go code, I think there were a few issues. Like some of them seem to be related to the fact that like maybe VS Code wasn't recognizing if you have like Go 111 module set. But I'll keep looking at those. But yeah, there's been a few like issues, and there's been a few that like are oftentimes like, yeah, just hard to diagnose. But yeah, I'll just keep looking into it. It could be usually it's to do with Go packages, not finding someone's package. But yeah, I'll just keep interacting with users on those. But I think that's basically the updates.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Joe, Zach, did you want to give an update on from the Atom side of things?
Sure, I can cover that. Not a whole lot new on module support, kind of selfishly waiting for Ramya, who has all the users, to figure everything out. One thing we have done recently, though, is leveraged all the built-in UI stuff as opposed to providing our own views. So what that's going to allow us to do is when a language server is ready to rumble, we just plug into that, and users shouldn't notice any difference at all. So it's kind of what I'm waiting for because I don't have a ton of time to spend on it.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I don't think I didn't get an update from Billy. I think so there's still the two things from the Vim Go side of things that are outstanding on the Vim Go side are to sort out the question of context, because of course Vim has that missing notion of context. And there was another thing from last meeting that I can't remember. It can't have been that significant. So I don't think there's been any particular movement on that side of things. I just had a message from Marwan. Yeah, Marwan, sorry, do you want to just fill in on what it is you're referring to there about Go list?
Yeah, so Ramya mentioned that I should bring this up here. It's and I also brought it up in the Golang in the goTools mail list. I built a little thing mainly for myself, but people are free to try it, which is if anyone has been using, let's say, VS Code or maybe even Vim and other tools, I haven't tested them myself, but if you've experienced like performance issues and you've attended these meetings, you will know that a lot of the performance issues when it comes to things like go to definition and auto-completion come from the fact that GoList takes a while. And so I built a GoList cacher, and if you go to marwan.io/GoList, one word, you could check it out yourself. Basically, all it does is that when you issue a GoList the first time, it takes maybe a few seconds if you're on a Mac or whatever. But then after that, it's all cached, so it takes a millisecond or two, and so that your auto-completion and go to definition become good or workable, I should say. And so from there, the only issue there is to be aware of is the fact that we can't, once you have a new import and you're editing something and you haven't saved, you just can't go to definition or do auto-completion unless you save the file. And that's an issue with GoList as well. Maybe I can do a presentation. I don't know. It'll be on the fly. So
just whilst you're getting that ready, Marwan, Brian, I think, is Brian on the call? I think he was earlier on. Is there anything to talk about, Brian, on the GoList speed side of things and whether we're likely to see anything for 112?
Not at the moment, although I did notice that Jay Conrad, who is here in New York on the other window, is picking up a couple of GoList bugs. So hopefully, I think we're getting more people working on the Go command and working on those sorts of issues.
Cool.
So I'm going to be looking at GoList performance specifically over the next few weeks, and caching within GoList is something that I'll be looking at. So Marwan, I will probably follow up with you later.
Sounds good. Yeah, the whole idea in the README, you'll see, like, I hope whatever I built gets either removed or adapted somewhere else. This is just a current workaround. If you have Go modules and you just want it to work right now, it's been working okay for me, and you can check it out and ping me on the Go First Slack directly, because I'm usually there.
Okay.
So basically, the way it works is that the Go packages has an environment variable called Go packages driver, and you can set it to a binary, and that's where it will get your Go list from. So the installation should be fairly easy. It's just that, let me see if I could share my screen real quick. Can everybody see this? I have VS Code open.
This is going to have to be your elevator pitch, Marwan. 30 seconds.
So basically, all you need to do if you're on VS Code is set the golang-tools like this. goTools mvars, there we go. So for this one here, you just set it for Go packages driver to be Go list once you download it. And something like this, if you maybe go to definition here, should the first time around, takes really quickly. And if you hit it for the very first time, you can see that it takes a little bit longer. But once it's cached, it's a little bit faster. And so it works the same with auto-completion. And I haven't really tested it with find all references and stuff like that. But that's basically it. Feel free to check it out and let me know.
Marwan, that's awesome, because I think that was off the back of an issue that we that Fatih saw with GoList, and Jay, maybe this is one that you'll bump into as well. The native, probably native's the wrong word, performance of GoList on the Mac is significantly slower than a Docker VM running on the same Mac. So there's some massive anomaly there, which I can't even wrap my head around as to how that happens, but that probably just shows how little I know about these things more than anything. So I'll just CC you on that issue. And it's been, I think, a large part of the reason why some folks within even, say, the VS Code world, because, of course, I suspect that's subject to the same slowness, they're just running natively on a Mac, as I say, and Go is just performing the Go list commands is performing like, I think it was like Fatih, remind me, like 4 or 5 times slower. And that just starts to get
2 times.
Yeah, exactly. Incredibly noticeable when you're on a larger project. So there may be a sort of a very quick win there for if we assume the majority of our users are Mac using VS Code, they're all going to be being hit by this right now.
Okay, yeah, if you can link me to that issue.
Sure, I'll do that, yeah.
Sounds like an interesting one.
Yeah, maybe not interesting, but definitely annoying. Cool. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Marwan. Thanks, Jay. Brian, anything else you wanted to add from the Command Go side of things?
Not at the moment.
Cool. Skipping quickly on. I think we covered updates on tools that fall under that tools umbrella issue. Go rename is one that's getting a bit more airtime. Ian, I don't know whether that's something that is on the list for being tackled next or where that fits in.
It's on the list, but it's a really horrible tool because it requires reverse transitive dependencies, which is hideously slow on significantly sized repositories.
Mm-hmm.
We have ideas for how to fix it, but they involve such radical changes that Go rename essentially is unportable to them.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Mm-hmm.
We think we know how to do a much, much better version of Go rename. The question is whether we port Go rename in the meantime or not.
Got it. Okay, so it may just be worth putting in a holding note there for those people who are sort of waiting on it to say that, okay, this is a bigger challenge. Yeah. So I might just add a note to that issue.
If anyone wants to attempt it and send us a pull request, I'll happily accept it.
Maybe you should fork it and rename it.
Nice. We dealt with the GoDef issue. Thanks, Rami, for picking that up, and apologies for the breakage there. Michael, anything on the Go packages side of things that you wanted to update on?
Not at the moment.
Cool. Anything on the Go analysis side, Alan, if you're on?
Alan's not here.
Alan's not here. Even better. LSP, should we quickly skip onto that for anything, Rebecca, Ian?
Sure. I don't know that we have any like significant updates. We still haven't, like, we were able to use it and try it out. So if you want to, I guess you could, but it's really still not super usable. And so we'll share when it's ready for like an actual, testing by other people. So I think that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Just a note on the language server. Rebecca, Ian, did you guys hear from this somebody? I forgot the name, but there's someone with a language server out there, Bingo or something it's called, and they're claiming that they have a language server working. Did you get a chance to check that out or thoughts?
I saw them comment on that bug, and it was the first time I'd heard of it, and I went and looked at it, and it seems like they're kind of copying and pasting some code out of lots of other places and stuff. I'm not sure how advanced it is or how much time they're dedicating to it. I was considering reaching out to them and asking them to collaborate on Go LSP instead, but I don't know.
Yeah, because I think that person is going around and in every new issue, every other new issue in my repo, he's like putting that comment in. Yeah. And I wanted to check with you before I reply with an official stance. So yeah, if you're planning to reach out to that person, that'd be great.
Yeah, I guess we'll do that. I didn't realize there was multiple comments.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's the same comment, just copy pasted in 100 issues.
Okay.
Spending a lot of time on issues, at least, then. Cool. Yeah, it sounds like it would just be worth clarifying that. Oh, hi there.
Just wanted to say hi. My name's Chris. I work at SourceGraph, and we also have a Go language server. and we're really excited that the goTools team is picking this up and really driving this forward. And we would love to share some of the insight that we've gotten from running a language server in production for a few years now. So just want to say hi.
Hi.
Hey, Chris. I think Ian's been speaking with Quinn and others. Ian, I'll just hand over to you at this point.
Yeah, so we met at GoFCon this year and talked about it. So yeah, we have had conversations with your team. But yeah.
Hey, Chris, in the previous sessions we've had folks from SourceGraph on the call. And so that line of communication is definitely open to Ian and the folks working on the language server, but I appreciated you bringing that up.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Are you like working on the Go language server at the moment, or like what's your capacity in the team? Because I'd like to reach out to you like offline.
Yes, I am. Yeah, so
I couldn't see you on Slack, so what's the best way to reach you?
perhaps my GitHub handle,
Okay.
Chris M. Wendt, ChrisMWendt.
Okay, because since we're talking about language servers, recently users have seen performance issues. So I don't know if you know, but VS Code has an integration with the Go language server that a lot of users use, and they've seen a lot of perf issue recently. And I have no way of debugging it. So if I could get some help on that area, that'd be great.
Sure, feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Well, Ramya, if you're okay catching up with Chris offline, that's brilliant. Just to quickly skip through and try and get through a couple of other things on any other business list. We clarified I think Ian, you've answered the question on what fork of GoDev people should be using. That sounds like it's going to be merged back to Roger stuff soonish. Rebecca, we already have the stance on Go Code that will only be merged back to Matthew Dembski's fork as and when things get quotes fast enough. Yeah. Daniel, you had a question about Go packages config that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Ian and Michael about basically adding new files to existing packages and new packages that are being loaded. I know that Ian mentioned that that's on their minds, but I don't think there's an issue about it yet.
New files, you mean like files that don't already exist on disk, so that you can't put them in the overlay, you mean?
Exactly, yes.
I don't think do we have an issue for that?
I don't think there's a tracking issue, no.
Yeah,
We've had a lot of conversations, but
it's a little bit hard. I haven't been able to come up with a good solution to that problem yet, but if there's like a heavy need, I can invest more time looking into it. If the issue doesn't exist, yeah, please feel free to create it, and we'll spend some more time looking at it. Yeah, it's just we'll need to have like more communication with GoList or something to be able to figure out how those new files fit into the packages, because currently we can guess but can't do the right thing all the time. Or we might just have to like fudge it, which I tried to do originally when I was sending out the change for the overlays, but I'm not a huge fan of doing that sort of thing, and I don't know what you folks in the community think about that. So I mean, discussion on the bug I think would be good for that.
Yep, agreed. I mean, it's not a hugely important thing, but and I can work around it for now. But I was just wondering if you guys had any ideas for now. But yeah, do you guys want to start the issue, or should I?
Feel free to start the issue. Yeah.
Cool. I think it's probably, thanks Daniel, thanks Michael. I think it's probably worth just wrapping things up there, because I have got a list of other things that we can just bump the next time. Apologies if there's stuff that people wanted me to cover that we're not going to cover now, but I think there's enough folks on the call here to for us to not run over too much. So I thank you very much, everybody, and thanks to Jonathan, Aaron, and Chris for joining the call today. I'll try and get the notes out, and if anybody's got any questions, queries, etc., and we can follow up in golang-tools afterwards.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Steve. All right, cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
stupid question, but how do you get in touch with